Welcome to NCPD Live. Rooted in gospel values that affirm the dignity of every person, the National Catholic Partnership on Disability works collaboratively to ensure meaningful participation of people with disabilities in all aspects of the life of the Church and society. I'm Charlene Katra, Executive Director of NCPD, and I am delighted to have with us today James Arkell. Welcome, James.
Hi, Charlene. Hi, thank you for having me.
Well, we're looking forward to a great conversation, learning a lot more about your family this afternoon. But we want to begin, of course, as always, in prayer. So I will be happy to be the leader of the prayer. If others want to follow along, they may certainly do so as well. We'll begin in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. God, creator of all, help us to recognize that each of us has abilities and each of us has limitations. And yet we all have a part to play in bringing about your kingdom. You love each of us profoundly. In the spirit of gratitude and solidarity, we ask you to increase our awareness of both the gifts and the needs of those around us. Open our hearts, minds, and doors to the gifts of every person. Help us to become truly welcoming communities where everyone can find a place at your table. We ask this in your name. Amen. So a little bit about James. I think you saw there was a screen up before you saw us, but James is a proud father of 4 children and husband to Sarah. And he's also chief operating officer for Loretto Holdings, a company that specializes in real estate development. He also diversifies. He's an owner of a minor league hockey team, the Kansas City Mavericks, as well. And of course, his family also has always been very pro-life and has, I think, been even more steeped in that belief and Catholic stance since the birth of Michael, his 4th child, his son. But he also has a foundation that focuses on charitable contributions that strengthen family, children with special needs, as well as Catholic schools. He works with local and national organizations. I'm going to let James tell his story, so I'm not going to get into some of the details yet. But as the preliminary screen that was up there said, his son was born with and I would even include the word very, very rare genetic condition. So, James, can you tell us a little bit about your entire family? But we want to talk a little bit, especially today, about Michael's journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And a little bit of background. I am lucky. I get to work it's a family company. I'm not the owner. It's all inclusive among our family, which is rather large. And I've had a phenomenal example in my father-in-law who all these people have been put in my life to help prepare us and to prepare me for the gift of Michael. Our first daughter was born 13 years ago, and our family, I would say we were mediocre Catholics. We went to Mass on Sunday, and we tried to do our best. And, our family foundation, it does specialize in things and organizations that strengthen the family is kind of our core belief. So the best way we found to do that is for us to support Catholic schools and pro-life foundations. And so we had 3 children who were relatively easy. And then our 4th child was Michael. And when Michael was born, I'm not sure if you want me to go ahead and go with that, or how do you?
Well, first I want everybody to meet your other children. So I have written down that's Evan, James, and Claire, correct?
Emma, James, Claire, and Michael. Yes.
Emma, James, Claire.
Claire's here with me right now. Claire.
Oh, she can come on. That would be wonderful.
Claire, you want to come say hi?
She can say hello.
Well, we're talking about how important it is for families. You say hi. This is Claire.
Hi, Claire.
Claire's our 9-year-old and our overachiever.
Oh, it's so nice to meet you. Okay. So how do you can you want to tell us anything about Michael, your brother Michael? What would you like people to know about Michael?
You want to think about it? You can talk a little bit?
You can come back.
Great. So, She didn't know what we were doing. I got a call from my
We
wife,
surprised
and
her. That's
yeah,
okay.
she had
Maybe
all the
she'll come.
actually she was taking Michael to therapy, and
Oh,
we didn't have any help today, so I rushed home. Our office is luckily very close to our home, and so I
good.
went and got her and grabbed her some food and got back here. And so I said I have a call at 1. I didn't tell her what it was about though.
Sure. Well, let me just ask you this then. Let's start with where I know you've shared with me, but the story of kind of when and how you came upon knowing of his diagnosis. And of course, he was born prematurely.
Right. Well, Michael was 7 weeks early, and he spent 5 weeks in the NICU, and so that kind of, you know, the first year of his life he was in and out of the hospital, but it was attributed to the preemie situation, because preemies typically have lung issues and low muscle tone and things like that. After about a year, the doctors just said there's something more here, and so we went to the downtown unit of Children's Mercy Hospital here in Kansas City, which is where they call it the mothership, but that's where the real magic happens, if you will.
Mm.
That's the place where the specialists are. That's where it's a huge complex, and they talk about. We've heard heroes a lot over the last 15, 16 months of pandemic living, and those guys. I'm not judging levels of how heroes are, but
Right.
the people at Children's Mercy Hospital are just truthfully, I mean, they're just amazing. The way that they not only treat the children as well as the family. And every time we've had to go there, it's been an amazing experience. For I jokingly say we're there for the worst reason in the world, but they make it as good as possible. So we went down there, and we were lucky to get connected with a neurologist who happened to be in town working on a research paper at Children's Mercy. And he took over, and I'm shortening this, but he was responsible for figuring out what Michael has. And it's a series of numbers and letters. There's so few people that it doesn't have a name. There's some similar genetic conditions. It's a microdeletion of chromosome 15, I think, and then there's a whole bunch of other stuff that goes along with it, but they rarely ever find it this early. It's always misdiagnosed because it's so rare. And at the time there were 12 cases, including Michael, that were known in the world. I can't quote me on that, but we jokingly refer to them as the 12 apostles.
That's a very rare, like I said, very rare genetic disorder.
Very rare. This is not like orphan. This is like this doesn't even register on the radar because it's so rare. So
I was going to say, speak to if you're getting to the part about the doctor that we'll say God placed in front of you and for you.
There's no other answer. Yeah,
there is no other answer.
So his name is, and he wouldn't mind me sharing this. His name is Jean Baptiste Lepachon, and he's actually a French prodigy. His father was quite famous as well in neurology and genetics, and so JB. Again, the series of connections just are too mind-boggling to even, but he sat us down and Michael stayed for 3 days. They took so much blood that they just kept trying, to figure out what was going on. It took quite a long time. A few weeks later, we get a call. We go down there, and JB sits us down and says, he'll never walk, talk, or see. And you got to keep in mind, up until now, we've had, kids had asthma, but relatively low on the scale of issues health-wise. And so it was just kind of like getting hit by a truck. And we're in this it was a really small room. It's like one of those little exam rooms, and we're just kind of crunched in there, and he's got a computer on a monitor, and he's showing us. And I just kind of spaced out, and my wife immediately went into rock star motherhood mode, which I joked that she could be shot and pregnant and still lift a truck off of one of my children, and she's only 5 feet tall. So she's doing, and I'm, my world is just kind of spinning. And I said, well, what does this mean? He said, well, I discovered the first case of this in America, and I wrote my doctoral thesis on it. And we're like, okay, well, wow, but what now? And so he said, we're going to plan for the worst, but expect the best. And so what that meant is that Michael's been able to get a jump start on treatment since he wasn't misdiagnosed. He was a year old. Most kids, they don't get till 10 or 11, if that. Sometimes they don't get diagnosed at all, probably, because it is so rare. And without this series of events, God knows how long it would have taken for us to really identify what it was. So the upside is that he's been with us ever since, and he's written another paper on the syndrome and the results of the therapies that they've tried on Michael, which, like I said, he's at therapy right now. That's why I had to go home and get Claire. He does aquatic therapy, feeding therapy, you name it therapy, speech therapy, vision therapy. He's constantly, the kid works harder than anybody I know, and he's just always happy. I mean, he is just always so happy.
What a marker for us, right? For, I'm sure, your family, for all of us.
No complications in his life, I mean, it's so simple. And hey, what do you want to say?
He likes to grab glasses.
Come on, Claire, we can't see you.
Yeah.
And like to pick. And when you give him something to pick up, he likes to pick it up.
Yep. And he likes to be around his doggies, doesn't he?
And he likes to swim when at aquatherapy.
Yep, he likes to swim too. That's true.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thanks, Claire.
Sorry.
No, that's great.
You just yelled at you're welcome from the other room.
You're welcome. No, but that's a whole other aspect. I mean, we're talking about Michael, but you have 3 other children. So do you want to speak to that a little bit about, feelings as a parent when you have one that are very great, and then you still try to, share your energy and time and love with everyone, of course?
Up until even today, it's a struggle. You're never prepared for something like this. No matter what you think you're not prepared. And so all of a sudden you're thrust into this new world, and you may as well just move to the moon. And there are amazing people and organizations like yours out there that they're there to put their arms around you and help you, but you still are like, I mean, it's like starting a new job with no training, right? And so luckily there have been people in my life for a long time that had children with disabilities, and I could call them. They mentored me through the process, and their honesty and willingness, I don't know how we would have survived otherwise. Telling me things like, you guys have to be on the same page. You guys have to look out for each other. That whole oxygen mask mentality of, yeah, you've got to be there for the kids, but if you two aren't there for each other, it's not going to help anybody. And it's little things like that. But, we try. It's constant at our house. It's chaos. We live in chaos, but it's organized chaos, I guess. And I mean, I'm blessed to be able to do things like bring my daughter to the office. I have resources and opportunities, and so does my wife, that allow us to spend more time with our children. And that's critical. I mean, the number one thing that we learned is we had to slow down. What we were doing, the pace we were living, we were never home. We were always away. And there was always a lot to do, but this taught us that we need to spend more time at home and focus on what really matters.
And speaking of what really matters, because you're a Catholic family, can you talk to us just about your own spiritual life? How has, again, I said before, your pro-life stance, your advocacy for that, not to discount even just your own, spirituality, sacramental life, taking all the kids to church, and what Michael has done Michael has done for your faith community as well.
Well, it was funny. I think I told you the Archbishop was speaking at our church this past weekend.
Yes.
And he's an amazing guy. For those that don't know, he's the head of the Bishop's Council on Life. And so he's going through the homily, and Michael in church, sometimes the spirit just gets him. And he starts laughing, and it kind of echoes and reverberates throughout the church. And so my son James, who's 11, we've always been big believers of having our children in church, right? Like if you just scoop them up the second they make a peep, then they're never going to learn how to be in church. But it does reach a point where it's bothering people around, and they don't want, it's just not fair. So James knows once we hit that level of, then he takes Michael and he goes to the back, and they go, and you can still hear him in the back having a good time. But so the Archbishop who baptized Michael, he knew, and you saw him smiling because he knows Michael's squeak. So James takes Michael out, and then another little boy started going, and he wasn't stopping. And so the Archbishop told us a story that another bishop told him about how he was giving a homily, and there was a child that was just screaming, and the mother got up to take him out in the middle of the homily, and he stopped, and he said, no, it's okay, it doesn't bother me. And the mother turned around and said, yeah, but your homily is bothering the baby. And so everybody got a good laugh out of that in the church.
Yeah.
And I mean, to speak to the church and our relationship with it, we can all do better. And we've tried to use Michael as an example, and opportunities and resources that have come our way to help the church. I think everybody believes they have to do something big for it to matter, and just little things like being able to say, hey, let's just make some pews available. Let's just make sure that there's some pews available for those that are in wheelchairs, because unfortunately with Michael's chair, we can't, there's only a few places we can sit where it's not obtrusive. That we try to not get in anybody's way. We try not to be, we don't go out of our way to be in the way, I guess. But in terms of how it's affected my spiritual life, I didn't have a choice. I mean, it was like, either you figure out how to work through this, because there's no going away. Help is not on, there is no changing this. You are here, you are the parent, you are going to figure this out. And what I've learned is that the church was there in so many ways to lift us up and just wrap its arms around us. I mean, I can't tell you how many times there's people from the church I've called angry or crying, or people that are in situations like mine that are also in the church, and God always puts the right people there at the right time. And I mean, even the Archbishop, there's been times where I'll be sitting at my desk and I'm not in the best place. It's okay. I guess that's, the number one thing that people don't seem to get, and this doesn't have to do with having a disabled child or anything. It's okay to not be okay. I think we live in a society where it's like, you have to be okay at all costs, and you do not show weakness, and you do not show that you're not okay. And nothing gets accomplished with that. And so being able to open up, the church has taught me that. I have genuine, authentic people within the church who I can talk to and just say, I'm failing. I am absolutely failing, whether it's today, this week, or this month. Help me. And it seems like there's always something, whether it's a world famous crazy French neurologist, or just a simple email or a call. I mean, just on the way here, I had breakfast with a good friend of mine that's part of a men's group, and things weren't going great. I didn't plan to rush home, and I didn't plan to do these other things, and I didn't plan to have a 13-year-old daughter who is a 13-year-old daughter. I mean, it's just enough said. And he sent me, the guy I had breakfast with, sent me a copy of a homily, and it was like the calm in the midst of the storm, right while I was driving back, and I'm like, I don't even have to listen to it. The title helped me calm down.
That's good.
So, I think that's one of the things that, as a church, we need to do a better job messaging. I don't think people really realize the beauty of the Catholic Church, and it's beyond just the sacraments, and it's beyond just the scriptures, and it's really a matter of the people in the church are amazing.
Right. And just that we're born to be in relationships. And so that communal life of a faith community, again, like you said, regardless of with or without a loved one with a disability, is vital, and life-giving. So I'm glad you have such a strong support system, obviously yourself and you and your wife, and I'm sure the children too. So between family businesses and, again, faith communities, men's groups, sometimes you need all of that and more. But I've always said too, when you put parents together who have, a loved one with a disability, those of us who, I say, kind of serve in ministry can get out of the way, because parents to parent, that networking is just amazing. The gifts that you give each other by telling your stories, and again, speaking truth, I guess, I'd say, it's not sugar-coated. This is just how it is. And you can share so openly and be really vulnerable. So I'm grateful for that for you too. Other things you'd like to tell us about Michael in particular? How's he doing now? Any other things about Michael?
He's doing really well. He actually, the greatest thing we were able to do was have zero expectations. We love him. Our family is more complete. In that video that you saw, my wife said, and she got a little backlash for it. And I mean, everybody's offended by something today. But
Mhm.
she said, and I think I kind of paraphrased her at the beginning, she said, I was on my way to being a very mediocre parent.
Mm.
And Michael helped open our eyes because, yeah, we were taking them to the soccer games and everybody had everything they needed or wanted and everything. But we didn't realize how precious life was because everybody was relatively healthy. Until you're rushing your child to the hospital at 2 a.m. and he's not, because it never happens between 9 and 5. It
Right.
only happens after midnight. And,
Sure.
his condition is so serious that they can't even take him in a regular ambulance. He has to go in a critical
Mhm.
care ambulance. That this is the world we live in.
Mhm.
So the fact that he hasn't been hospitalized during COVID, there was all the level of fear was through the roof. And there's nothing worse than isolation when there's fear present. And so we were very lucky that those people, and we're not unique. There are people. The church is full of these people, but that's not what people focus on. We've done a horrible job on the fellowship side in the Catholic Church. People don't realize that the church hasn't been as welcoming as it should. It's not the church's fault. I'm just saying
Well,
there's
it's a
so much
process.
missed, I think. What's that?
I'm sorry, what did you say, James?
I think that the church really needs to do a better job of showing how to connect to that faith community, because I know myself as a father of younger children. Before, when we just had Emma, I could go to the 6 a.m. Bible studies and things like that, and my kids all go to our church school, which is St. Michael the Archangel, and we're pulling in. One of the blessings I have is I get to drop them off every day, and I schedule my day so I can pick them up from school too. And we're pulling in, and my daughter Claire says, "Why don't you ever go do that, Daddy? Like this guy and this guy and this guy, and they're all older and retired." I said, "Well, sweetie, I have to choose between taking you to school, which Mom needs me to do because where Michael goes to school is about 45 minutes away. So just the logistics of having a child like Michael become a challenge. But I said, I'd rather be with you." So she said, "Well, what about, how do you do that then? Where?" And I said, "That's a good question." So I went to my spiritual director and he said, "Well, why don't you start your own group?" And so we sat down with a bunch of guys my age and said, "Why can't you go to this?" And we reverse engineered a men's group that meets every other week, and we meet after school drop off. And if you're not there, you're not there. But this does exist within the church. It just, people need to be. I was always afraid to speak up. I was always afraid to say I can't do this, so I guess I'll do nothing. So that's one of the things I think we could do a better job communicating.
And I'm glad to hear that because I hope people listening, and I hope there's some church leadership out there listening too, as well as other parents, because I've always spent a lot of time telling parents, make sure you present your needs to your faith community. Even in those realities, if something's not family friendly, or even for those of you who have kids with disabilities and, parents have to divide and conquer even for school days, let alone, sometimes even for masses. I know some parents have to do that. A variety of circumstances, but on one hand, and as hard as it must be sometimes to have the courage to step out and say, or even like you did, get a group to start something new that's not done yet. But at the same time, challenging our church leadership too, to offer more creative outreach in the neighborhood and community. Because a lot of times disability community is underrepresented in the church.
Oh, yeah.
And, statistically, if 25% of a population has some diagnosis or disability, and you're not seeing that in the pews, then, it kind of tells you might want to do a little more research about who's living in your area, in your neighborhood area, to see if you can make some connections and build some relationships.
Absolutely.
Mentoring between parents is golden.
Yeah, and that's one. And to be fair to our clergy and our church leadership, they've got so much on their plate, and we dearly love our parish priest, and he's the vicar general or whatever. He's in charge of all the other priests, and we went to him, because we did have issue with some things, and he was very honest. He said, I don't know how to fix it. You've got a guy who's the CFO, the CEO, the COO, the camp counselor, the school counselor. he's getting hit from so many different directions. So having some patience and showing some grace to them, by the time we went in, my wife was so fed up that she wanted to leave the church, and that wasn't the right way for us to handle it. It was really more a matter of we needed to, not being afraid. It is hard. It's hard to walk out and say, "Hey, we need help." I think that's everybody. Everybody has a hard time saying we need help.
Right. It's not exclusive for one group or another. That's
Right.
true.
Yeah.
But again, it goes back to we really do need each other. And I guess part of what I would have to say today in particular is NCPD is here for the national Catholic resource that it is to the church. So again, clergy, leadership, families, if you need ideas, if you need resources, if you need, we're here to serve. So I really do hope, if anyone listening, if they haven't met us yet and tapped into us more thoroughly, that, start with the website. And you mentioned Michael's, the video. It's called Michael's Story. We've kind of highlighted it recently in some of our, I think, e-newsletters, and it was certainly on our website front cover for about a month. But if anyone's listening, I encourage you to just Google or in our search bar, put Michael's Story in, and you'll get James's video that was created, showing all of their family, but highlighting again Michael's story. Beautifully done. And we thank you for sharing that with us too, and sharing your family with us, James. It's been a pleasure for us to get to know you.
Yeah. No, I appreciate everything your organization's doing, and that's I think our biggest complaint would be that there are so many great organizations and people like you that are out there to make a difference, but it's, like I said, you're in shell shock when you first it's hard to know where to go first. And so sometimes the connection between the parent and your organization, it's a pretty long road, and trying to figure out how to get that to people. I mean, I'm sitting here as you're saying this, trying to figure out what I could do to help more people know, because I didn't even know about your organization until Archbishop sent you the video and you reached out. And then I'm like, wow, this is amazing.
Right, exactly. So we don't want to be a best kept secret. We don't want to be that. We want to be known. So I guess I always say to people, tell other people and especially like your family who's already connected to a lot of other people in the disability community by virtue of your life circumstances. When you're sharing resources, let them know about NCPD, of course. That's a very helpful thing. And obviously, we're always welcome. We also always welcome prayers too, just for the staff, the board, the whole community that we serve in particular. As you have ours, we ask for yours for us too. So again, we'll continue on this journey together, I'm sure, James. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us?
No, I just, like I said, thank you to you. It's been great getting to know you guys. And this is something that we can't do a lot. People don't need to be alone. Don't be alone. No matter what you're doing, don't try to do it by yourself, whether it's a handicapped child or whatever it is. I mean, if anything, over the last however many months it's been, we've learned we need people, like you said. And it helped me appreciate our parish community. And I'm not trying to sound like I'm I fall down so much. I don't know what I'd be like if I didn't have all these things. I'd be a complete mess. So just having the support, really just, walking shoulder to shoulder with other people that are trying to live their lives, it's a real gift, what we have in the church and that community.
Thank you. Well said. Again, for a Catholic family, we want to be able to affirm their Catholic identity.
Right.
So we want the church doors to be open and the hearts of the people in the church to be open.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Well, James, I hope we visit with you again in the future. Of course, we will certainly stay in touch. And again, our gratitude for your time today, your families. We send our love and prayers back with you to your home. And we hope you had a blessed Father's Day.
I did. I had a great Father's Day. So thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you. God bless everyone.